everybody, welcome to Seriously Lighthearted Yoga. Today we are going to be breaking down one of the basic poses, as Kai calls it. That doesn't mean that it's an easy pose as much as it's simple. This is going to be a pose that you're going to learn pretty early on in your yoga practice. But again, as you're about to find out, there are a lot of intricate little details to it. And that's what makes it not the easy pose that you would think it is, but more of a basic pose. And that pose is downward facing dog. Without further ado, Kai,
All right.
Why don't you give it to him?
Yeah, so that distinction that Clifton was talking about, the difference between easy and basic, I essentially like to think of it as a basic pose because you will encounter this pose in many beginning classes even. Like your first yoga class, you might do downward facing dog. And that's not a bad thing. Not a good thing. It's just what it is. It's, again, not an easy pose. It can be very challenging, actually, if you hold it for a little bit longer than you might do in some classes, but you will find that your arms begin to shake, your legs can get really tired. And that's why I make the distinction between easy and basic. So basic, you're going to get it in a beginning class, probably. Easy, not necessarily. Don't confuse the two, is really the point I want to make there. Anyways, without any further ado, let's get to work on it. Downward facing dog. So everyone channel your inner dog and get down on the mat with me.
Break it down, Kai.
Oh, yeah. So in this pose, essentially one of the first few things to think of, bringing your hands flat down onto the mat, bringing your feet down onto the mat, and think of pressing into the whole palm in your hand and pressing down into the soles of your feet. Thinking in the soles of your feet of pressing through the heels to bring them down toward the mat. So again, often they are rising up at first, and then as we get more flexible, we get to bring them closer and closer to the mat. And then from there, kind of the next thing you can think about is bringing your hips up toward the ceiling behind you. So essentially you're trying to make a triangle where you press down into your hands and your feet, and you lift your hips. From there, thinking of keeping that traction in your spine, keeping it nice and long here. And to do this, oftentimes what people should think about is keeping their gaze essentially straight down toward the mat, not trying to bring your gaze toward your feet or toward your knees. You don't want to do that with your spine. Your neck can do the movement. It's not going to hurt you probably, but it could. And trying to keep that spine lengthened and extended is what we're looking for in this posture here. From there, thinking of bringing your chest towards your shins here. That allows you to get deeper into your shoulders and allows you to find a little bit of traction in your spine. Again, not forcing it in your lower back here. So you don't want to feel it too much in your lower back. And if you do, maybe come out a little bit. Don't go as far into the posture. A few of the finer points to take into this pose, if you've kind of been able to do that fairly well so far. Think about rotating the eyes of your elbows. This part right here, forward. So essentially to do that, you rotate the head of your upper arm bone here towards the front of your mat, cupping your shoulder blade down, and then rotating that elbow out. Still trying to keep your hands flat here. And then from here, eventually, the direction you're moving in the pose is to bring your head down toward the mat. And this is kind of the final expression of the pose. And as you can see, when I try to do that, my heels still lift off the ground. So it's not something I'm able to do perfectly yet. And it is something that is the direction of the pose, in a sense. So those are the finer points. And again, as I mentioned, these poses, as we get into them, they will all have what I call a direction, something you're aiming towards, but not necessarily achieving on any given day. It's just where you're trying to get in working on the pose.
Yeah, absolutely. So do as good as you can do, and that's really all you have to do.
Yep.
That looked much more textbook than I could do, but so long as I am using those practices that he spoke about, keeping my hands flat, pressing my heels into the ground, excuse me, lifting my hips up, those are the things that are important about the pose. And even if I can't touch my heels to the ground, so long as I'm trying, that's fine. That's all you need to do. It will get better over time. And as he pointed out, the eventual goal, of course, is to lower your head to your mat. That's not going to happen overnight, though. So
shoulders have to be really open. You got to have a nice flexible spine. Lots of things.
Yeah.
Anyways, think back to that video we had yesterday. This is your practice. So these are things you can work on. They're suggestions, but when you're doing the pose, it is yours. The pose you're doing is how it looks, however you are in that particular moment.
For sure. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Give somebody a high five. Then subscribe and like and share and do whatever.
We're trying to do it at the same time.
Yeah, you don't have to, though.
No, but just high five, subscribe, bam.
High scribe, we could call it. Anyway.
Anyways.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.